The Apple TV is by far one of the best products Apple has ever made, but I don't often hear much about the Google TV. So we're going to change that today as I take a look at comparing Apple TV with Google TV, as I continue my exploration of diving into the various ecosystems each brand has to offer. Starting with the price. The Apple TV 4K starts from just £149 here in the UK and includes 64 gig of storage, but you can also opt for an upgraded model with Ethernet and 128 gigs of storage for £169. Whereas on Google TV, there is only one option which costs just £99 and comes with 32 gig of storage, so half as much as the base model Apple TV 4K. Now with that said, you can likely find a small discount on the Apple TV from third parties such as Amazon, and whilst the Google TV isn't discounted right now at the time of making this video, Google does sometimes discount their products throughout the year, so I'll leave some links down below to find both of those if you're interested in checking those out. Now in terms of their design and the build quality, they are pretty similar. Apple is their usual slim but still kind of boxy, almost Mac Mini like design, with a rubber pad on the bottom to stop it from sliding around, weighing around 210 grams for both models, made of a mixture of aluminium and plastic. Now connectivity wise, there is a figure of 8 power lead as well as an HDMI 2.1 port, and also then Ethernet if you pay for the higher model, although both models do come with Wi-Fi 6 as standard. Now over on the Google TV side, it weighs only 143 grams in this kind of slimmer pill-shaped design, but it's almost entirely made out of this soft touch plastic. Also HDMI 2.1, but powered with a standard USB Type-C cable, which is nice, plus a gigabit Ethernet port is built in. There's no extra model to get gigabit Ethernet, but it does come with a slower Wi-Fi 5 version. Now you also do get a pinhole reset button, and also a button that lets you find the remote control, which is a very nice touch here, since Apple's Find My Remote feature requires you to actually pick up and use an iPhone to do so. Oh, and also the Bluetooth is 5.1 in the Google TV and then 5.0 in the Apple TV 4K. The included remote controls are also both nice. Apple's design hasn't really changed much in years. You've got this slim aluminium remote control with a mixture of buttons and touch controls with all of the usual controls you can expect. Although you can disable those touch controls if you just don't like that for any reason. But I do find it very useful when scrubbing through content or typing, using the on-screen keyboards, and it's rechargeable using USB-C, which again is a nice touch. Whereas Google has a matching kind of plastic design with buttons. There are no touch controls here, but you do get some extra buttons here to launch Netflix, to launch YouTube, as well as a star button down the bottom, which you can then customize to do things like opening the smart home controls, switching to a different TV input, or just opening any other app that you wish. But it is a bit thicker with its two AAA non-rechargeable batteries in the back, which means it's just more comfortable to hold, and it's ever so slightly less likely to slip down the side of the sofa, which the Apple TV does, like, constantly, all the time. Now it is a trade-off with both of these. I prefer the touch controls of the Apple TV remote. It makes browsing around the interface just so much easier, but I do like Google's dedicated buttons for YouTube and Netflix, plus that customizable star button at the bottom. Now features are what you think would set these two TV streamers apart, and there are quite a few differences. But before we get into that, this video isn't sponsored or anything, but I am officially launching a brand new email newsletter called Experiments in Progress, where twice a week I share behind the scenes experiments, some that don't even make it into a video, talking about tech that I'm either using or loving or just ditching. Plus there are tips and guides to help you choose the right tech faster, and even an after show for every video we upload here to YouTube. In the first issue, I'm actually sharing something I've never talked about before, which is how I've been using Google Gemini as my personal fitness coach, with actual prompts, results, and routines. Plus, if you subscribe before August 24th, you'll be entered to win either a pair of Pixel Bud 2s or a MagBak Magnetic Phone case for either your Samsung, your iPhone, or Pixel phone. Now, it's totally free to join. Just enter your email and you're in, and there will be a link in the description below to sign up. As of tvOS 26, both Google and Apple TV have profiles now, so you can choose which person is actually watching the TV, so you can keep maybe your kids or your partner's content separately. Now, Apple's tvOS 26 is pretty good at prompting you each and every time you switch on the TV. And when you hit the back button a few too many times, although you can't actually lock away any profiles using pin codes or anything, whereas you can lock profiles on Google TV. However, in my testing, it's pretty hit and miss, like mostly miss actually, as to whether it will ask you to choose a profile. Now, my profile has a pin code set, but if I switch the TV off and then someone comes along a few minutes later to switch it on and then watch something, it will still be logged into my locked profile. So you'll need to remember to switch to another unlocked profile before switching it off each time, or just leave enough time to pass so Google does prompt you for who is watching. Now, once you are in, the top recommendations section are similar across both Apple and Google, although Apple's top recommendations get mixed up a lot of the time, I find, and still shows me what my kids have been watching, even though it's on their profile. But maybe that will get fixed with an update. But outside of this, Google shows this feed at the top of content which seems to be a mixture of content you're watching or showing interest in, but also just straight up ads. Like when I looked up to see what others' experience was here, I actually came across a blog from February, early this year, from Android Police it was, showing Google advertising ads as a thing. But also, there are many other posts from so many people complaining about the ads on their Google TV, but Google being Google, of course, but also being Android and Google, there is a workaround in that, like your Android phone, you can install a different launcher, which then doesn't have ads. And it will actually show you a few alternatives that come up that will actually do away with those ads. But outside of that, Apple TV doesn't show you any ads, of course. And whilst it does also show you a feed of content at the top, that can also be a pretty mixed bag, as it only shows content from each app that you highlight, aside from Apple TV, I find, which is also to then try showing you content from the other apps, which can then be confusing as it takes you into Apple TV and then out again to maybe Netflix or Disney. Bit confusing. Now, you've got 4K HDR on both devices, including Dolby Vision if you have a supported TV, also Dolby Atmos too, and spatial audio when connected to compatible Bluetooth headphones. Although I do find pairing up the Apple TV 4K with the AirPods Max provides a much better and just more realistic cinema-like experience, or at least one that makes you think you have like a proper surround sound system like wired in without actually having one, and gives you this whole cinematic experience in complete silence. Now, one feature that Google apparently has over the Apple TV though is live TV. Now, I say apparently because I can't actually get this working. I meant to get a live TV tab along the top of the TV here, which lets me then watch any things that would be live like BBC and ITV, but I just don't see it even after I've signed into those apps. But I'm still going to mention it anyway because apparently it's a very useful feature for those who do still wish to watch live TV. Now, wallpapers are also great on both devices. Apple includes some incredibly detailed video wallpapers which just look visually stunning. Both of them can also pull from either your Apple or your Google Photos library, which I'm a huge fan of just to relive old memories. Honestly, it's one of the best ways to experience all of your old family treasured moments. But there is no dedicated Google Photos app for the Google TV, whereas you do get a full Apple Photos app on the Apple TV if you want to just manually browse through your photos. Now, with the Apple TV, you also get the extension of the Apple ecosystem, which includes things like Apple Fitness, a huge library of fitness content that can then talk to a connected iPhone, Apple Watch to display your live heart rate data on the screen. There's also Apple Arcade, which lets you play games on the big screen with a Bluetooth controller. You can also use your iPhone to type or even paste in usernames and passwords, and it integrates with password managers, which makes it so much easier to sign into apps. And actually, speaking of which, a recent update enabled single sign-on, so signing into, say, Netflix on your iPhone will also then sign into Netflix on your TV. There's also full screen FaceTime whilst using your iPhone as the camera. You can use your iPhone to calibrate the TV's display for accurate colors, and even sync the audio up because there is no delay. You can use your phone or even an Apple Watch again as the TV remote, and use the app to find a lost remote control. So not features you can get with the Google TV, and only something that you get when using something like a Samsung TV and a Samsung phone together. Now, the only, ecosystems you do get on the Google TV are integration with Google's smart home system, which on the Google TV are fairly limited. You do get things like a notification when someone presses the Google Nest doorbell, but aside from switching lights on or off or viewing cameras, there's not really much else going on. Now, with Apple, yes, it's still fairly basic, but you can actually set up things like notifications for things like when movement is detected, whether it's any movement or a person has been detected at different times of the day, and if someone is at home or not. Now, this has actually been really useful at times, especially with young kids, where we put them to bed at night, we have a camera on our landing, and actually the only camera, in fact, that is officially supported by Apple HomeKit, so that if someone sneaks out of bed, then it pops up on the TV to alert us. Now, both the Google TV and Apple TV perform pretty well. Like, I found the Google TV at times still struggles with the odd freeze here and there when navigating around, although when actually watching content, there weren't any issues there. But when you compare this to the likes of the LG or Samsung software that's built into their TVs, it is still a night and day difference with way better, way faster performance than what's built in. I still don't understand how today so many brands are getting such poor performance, yet year after year of telling us, how incredible the chips are inside the TVs and focusing on AI upscaling and other just AI features, when half the time people just don't use them because they're just so laggy and slow the TV down. The LG TV I've just reviewed on the channel, I switched off all of the ads, all of the smart features, because just without them, it just made things super slow. And this is really why the majority of people who I asked said they just plug in an external device like an Apple or a Google TV instead. Although I was still surprised it wasn't by a much wider margin than what it was. Now with Google, if you happen to be looking up TV shows or movies in a Google search, you can add things directly to your watch list and it will appear instantly on the Google TV. Whereas on the Apple side of things, you can add something to your watch list from inside the Apple TV app itself, but also if anyone shares something with you via something like iMessage, then that will then display that piece of content in the shared for you section to make it easy to access, rather than having to search through your messages to wonder what that name of the show was called. Now overall, both of these devices are pretty solid. I would say that the Apple TV 4K definitely is the quicker, more feature-rich device out of the two, but again, it's more expensive. And again, if you're an Android user, then the Google TV device isn't bad by all means. And actually, if you did buy one, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. But when you do put them side by side with an Apple TV 4K, it is still quite a difference. Now, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter, link down below, and you can check out the after show right now.